The plan preparation is an iterative process. As shown in the figure in the slide, it shows the main components of the ESP development process and how they operate in an iterative way. The 7 components are further described in the following sections. The paradigm shows the flow of the education sector plan development process. The first step is the education sector analysis. Under the education sector analysis, the preparation of an ESP starts with a diagnosis of the sector. The purpose of the sector analysis is not only to provide a description of the situation of the education system based on data and indicators, but also to provide an analysis of successes and weaknesses and difficulties encountered. The sector analysis relies on existing data and analysis provided by the Education Management Information System, additional surveys, and existing research studies. Additional information is collected for the purpose of education sector plan preparation only for important areas when existing information is not sufficient. The sector analysis included in the plan could be a summary or an update of the main issues identified, drawn from a separate comprehensive sector analysis. To build a strong diagnosis, all key stakeholders should be consulted at various steps of the process so that there is agreement on the key issues, the main determining factors, and the tentative conclusions. The second step is the policy formulation or the setting policy priorities and key strategies. The education sector plan should be strategic. It offers a vision of a desirable situation for the education system in the future and identifies the ways to reach this situation. It should determine a long-term vision specified in medium-term policy priorities. It set as goals and major strategies developed into programs. As a national policy instrument, the ESP is influenced by social development priorities and international commitments of the government. Not all levels and cycles of education are the same with regard to government responsibility for funding, service delivery, and support. The sector plan has to reflect the primary responsibility and government for the basic education cycle, which is related to the right to education and to the legal provisions for compulsory education. The third step is the program design. A sector plan should make explicit the causal chain, the rationale for action that translates challenges and their underlying causes, identified in the sector analysis into policy priorities and strategies at the policy formulation stage and onwards into programs and remedial actions. The expected results or outcomes are measured through indicators which are summed up in the results framework. The overall design of an education sector plan is usually comprised of 3 levels and has the following elements. 1. The goal or general objectives, which addresses a given challenge and it's linked to a target as an expected outcome. For instance, the goal might be to increase access to pre-primary education, and the related target could be to raise enrollment rates in pre-primary education from 25 to 40% for boys and from 22 to 40% for girls by the end of the succeeding year. Programs or specific objectives which address the underlying causes of the challenge and which are also linked to targets as expected intermediate outcomes. For instance, if the sector analysis found that low access to pre-primary education was related to an insufficient number of pre-primary schools, a high cost for families, and a lack of qualified pre-primary teachers, then the following programs could be put in place, such as extend the network 19 of pre-primary government schools, extend the support community, run pre-primary schools and kindergarten, abolish school fees and provide school kits to pupils from poor families, establish an institution to train pre-primary school teachers. The related targets could be a 15% increase in the number of pre-primary government schools in the next school year, or maybe 60% of the rural townships to have a community-run kindergarten by the following year, and C, the proportion of pre-primary students from poor households increase from 15% to 40% by the following year, and D, establish of a training institution for pre-primary teachers within 3 years. Another element is activities with their corresponding activity targets or outputs. For instance, activities for a program to extend the network of pre-primary government schools could include to complete a mapping exercise to identify where to build additional pre-primary classrooms and build and equip 250 pre-primary classrooms each year. The fourth step for planning is plan, costing, and financing. The process of ESP, costing and financing, is about testing the financial sustainability of policy options and targets. The estimated cost of the ESP will be examined at regular intervals during plan preparation, using projections and a final or financial simulation model to eventually establish a reference scenario that is financially sustainable. Using a simulation model is helpful to automate calculations and to ensure the consistency of the projections made. Cost estimates and financial trade-offs may lead to the simulations of various scenarios and corresponding policy choices. This in turn will lead to rethinking and adapting the programs and policy targets until an optimum scenario is found and there is a reasonable consensus among the stakeholders. The fifth step for planning is action plan. The action plan is sometimes referred to as an implementation plan or operational plan. It should be consistent with the policy priorities and programs of the ESP. The action plan should be drawn up with a medium-term expenditure framework and be linked to the national budget process so it can usefully feed into the annual budget preparation and oversight processes. It outlines the detailed activities for a specific period of the plan, with information on timing, roles, responsibilities, and cost. The action plan could be a separate document from the more strategic ESP document or be part of it. Another component of the education sector plan process is the implementation arrangement and capacities. What is an implementation arrangement? Key questions are who is responsible for the overall implementation of the plan and who is responsible for specific programs. Responsibilities and accountabilities need to be clearly identified. They should be as close as possible to the usual responsibilities of ministries and ministry departments. A good organizational chart helps show the overall structure of the ministry and the lines of authority. The organizational chart should be in harmony with the ministry's structure. It may be necessary to set up new structures, as in the case of the plan preparation process. A joint steering committee could be in charge of assigning implementation responsibilities and overseeing the overall implementation at the policy level, while a strategic monitoring team coordinates daily implementation. What is an implementation capacity on the other hand? The ability of the ministry to implement its plans depends on a number of factors, not all of which are under the control of the ministry. Some are the result of overall government policies. The final stage is the monitoring and evaluation mechanisms. Monitoring and evaluation mechanisms are crucial to ensuring that the plan is on track to achieving its targets. An effective mechanism or monitoring and evaluation system should ask whether the intended activities are being carried out as designed, whether the targets of the plan are being achieved, and if not, why not? Monitoring. The first step is to ensure the organization and procedures of monitoring. A unit or department in charge of overall monitoring should ensure consistency and coverage. The monitoring section of the Ministry of Education is the engine of the monitoring process because it collects and analyzes data from all levels of the system. And the evaluation, on the other hand, is usually carried out in midterm at the end of the plan period to avoid potential conflicts of interest, guarantee objectivity, and increase credibility. Evaluation results are discussed with stakeholders at joint sector reviews. Midterm evaluations are formative in nature and feedback into the program implementation to improve performance. Midterm evaluation results may lead to rethinking the plan's priorities or an adjustment of a plan's strategies and targets. Final evaluations are summative in nature. The intent of the final review is not only to evaluate impacts and outcomes, relevance, cost-effectiveness, and sustainability, but also to analyze the reasons certain results have been achieved and others not achieved, as well as to derive lessons for policy revisions and for preparing the next medium-term plan. Those are the main components of the education sector plan development process. And I hope everybody's aware of the importance of preparing an education sector plan and also the benefit we derive from it. Good day everyone, and see you again next week.